Hi, Satnam, everybody. We just wanted to give you enough, kind of time to really, once we actually show up here for this morning class, that you would be even more grateful than if we would have shown up 20 minutes ago. So we hope that, tactic worked. Either that or you might feel some other things, but we have an app for that. We'll deal with that later. Um, okay, well, to the because of the great work in tech from a TV and all of its amazing team, all of our amazing team, we're able to do this class outside in a beautiful, sunny California experience here. So we're grateful to be here with you, and there are many odd things happening around this planet, but these are the moments that we can cherish. And just like every day, I was saying yesterday, you should make gratitude a practice that you do every day. So it's not just a day that has been kind of whitewashed into some weird version of gratitude to cover up our guilt for some of the weird things that we've done in the history of humankind. I said this morning that when we kind of came down, the plane came down to Lhasa, in Tibet, I got hit so heavy with the altitude because I'd never been in that high of altitude, and then you kind of were wondering if you're going to be able to make it. Like you really do start to question whether you're going to die or not, for at least for the first little bit, and then the rest of the time you're in that kind of altitude, unless you live in that altitude, or you train for it. You start to kind of wonder if you're going to be able to take another breath and all that kind of stuff. It's that the altitude is very challenging. And so we landed and we started to get acclimated, and then you start to kind of see the impact of the Chinese invasion on Tibet in subtle ways and more extreme ways, and just how that kind of experience is working for the occupied and the those who are occupying. And it hit me very hard. One of the first things that hit me about being in Tibet was that occupation's been 70 years, and in the 90s, when I was a teenager, there was a lot of like free Tibet concerts, and there was this whole kind of abstraction of free Tibet and what that meant. But then when I landed there and we spent time there, it was very clear to me that Tibet will never be free, and that occupation will never end, at least not in this lifetime of mine. And that occupation of that land is not that much younger than the occupation of the land here in America, and some of the other occupied lands that are happening on this planet. And ultimately, the age of Aquarius is an opportunity. It's not just a paycheck without work. It's an opportunity that we have to take to reappropriate our insecurity, both collectively and personally, around power and around resources and around how we're moving in our own personal power, and how because ultimately the bottom line is when we feel empowered and we feel truly in our own personal kind of nucleus of our central power, we don't feel like we have to grab things from others and not share and try to steal. And we don't that's actually not the baseline of the human consciousness. But when we're not aligned, when our chakras aren't aligned, when our consciousness is not elevated, we think that we need to kind of grab something, take it for ourselves, and all that kind of stuff. And cue the history of as Eckhart Tolle calls it, mental illness here on planet Earth. If you look at the history of both the narrative of what you've been told in certain kind of constructs, and then also the narrative of things that you've studied yourself and this and that. I mean, this is a story of mental illness, if you really want to look at it that way. And so now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to create so much personal power and sovereignty and collective and communal power and sovereignty that we no longer feel like we have to make those kinds of grabs. However, the resource grabs and the way that occupation is happening now in the age of Aquarius has changed, and this is my point for today, which is that now the land they're occupying is your mind. And before, it was like that before, but it is way more sophisticated in this era of artificial intelligence and what that nefarious little reptile is calling the fourth industrial revolution. What's that guy's name? Charles Schwab. Is that his name? Klaus Schwab. What one of those Schwabs, and so you start to look at what is the agenda of the fourth industrial revolution, or another way that it's being put is the Great Reset. Anyways, the occupation of how we're kind of occupying and grabbing resource and grabbing what is now kind of the more precious resources on the planet, because it does change as the planet kind of changes, is much different. So we need to pay as close attention as we possibly can to both our own personal a relationship to our power, which ultimately starts at the third chakra in the yogic science. If your third chakra is balanced and you have a balanced kind of experience of your own personal power, you're not trying to grab or steal other people's power. That is the baseline of the way that humans operate. Now, there's definitely probably more than humans here, but we'll just keep with humans today on this Thanksgiving. Just one thing at a time. And so that's what we're kind of working with in terms of the new way that you're being occupied. Now, is this a reason to be fearful? Is this a reason to be kind of uh, feeling worried about the future? It's not, because ultimately we have a lot of power and choice right now. That's what these kind of cusp periods of these eras are. And that's why it's so accelerated, and that's why it's so intense right now. And so we're not being handed the golden yuga, the next age of consciousness. We're not being handed that on a silver platter. We have to work to create that. Now, there's an opportunity, and many will take that opportunity, and then many won't. But we have to work to create it. So that's why we're here together today. And just as a invitation, pay attention to this kind of uh, historical context, and then how you place yourself in the narrative of the historical context. Because one of the issues that we have, which I was complaining about in the Korean Women's Leadership Society call, is that we're not, especially the young people, they're not being actually kind of taught how to place themselves in the real narrative of what's happening on planet Earth. There's a lot of agendas thereof. And so we have to, with the people that are young that you're around that are open to it, you start to kind of help them. And first you have to help yourself contextualize the movement of time and space and how you're placed in it, which of course you have to figure out what that looks like. That's part of self-mastery. And then that helps us to then determine how we're going, what direction we're pointing our attention, our consciousness, our resource, which the biggest resource right now is your attention. So just pay attention to what you're paying attention to, as I said, and then I think someone before me said in almost exactly the same words, because we're in the 100th monkey. Someone pointed it out. I don't know who she is, but she's not alive anymore. But that concept, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. That's the greatest commodity now. This is the greatest resource. So we're grateful to be here with you, and we're grateful for your practice, because more than you know it's affecting what is the variance of possibility of the future. It's very, very much more than you know affecting what's possible in the future. And so let's have some dignity with our practice today, and some community. I thought when I got on this call there'd be other people. Where are the people? I wanted to see their little faces. Where are you guys? Am I just sitting on like a deck somewhere alone talking? Like, what's going on? I wore my scrunchie and everything. I mean, what is this, like a party for one right now? Um, if you're out there and you ever hear this in any time and space in the future, okay, bring the palms together. Are you going to bring some peace so I feel like I'm not alone here, Stephen Jagat? They had me in like some Zoom room by myself. Welcome to the Great Reset. Okay, happy everything. I know that my talk was very happy, so I'm sure you're feeling very happy. No, but this is a time where we really get to kind of be sober with ourselves and with each other, because we were listening to this last night. 1 out of 6 Americans, and I'm sure that this is way higher across the world, is experiencing food insecurity right now, and there's no reason for that, except that there's a lot of reasons for that, but there's no reason for that ultimately. So when you start to deconstruct who is controlling the food resources, and and how they're distributing it, and how it's being kind of moved around the planet, as well as at some of these bigger agendas. And as if you're interested in this kind of interstellar type of history, I was talking to Shaman Durek in my last interview with him, which is on my IGTV if you're interested. But he was saying, because he remembers his past lives, he was saying him and his partner were, they had a lot of slaves in Egypt, so 26,000 years ago or something, and so these working out some of the kind of karmic loops of that. But I thought it was very fascinating. He said that they had, because I know this to be true, but it was fun to hear from Shaman Durek. He said that they had certain types of treaties with the aliens to enslave humankind. So this has been going on a long time. And so you need to contextualize what's going on and make it bigger, as big as you can handle. So it's not just, this, that, and the other thing. But when I landed in Tibet, something that I think in my heart that I had thought, like, free Tibet, like this is going to happen, like Tibet will be unoccupied. It was very clear to me that that will never happen. And at least not in the way that I thought. And then you go to this. I spent some time unknowingly, because I got deported from India, with a Rinpoche who was doing a empowerment in Kathmandu, and his whole message, he had spent 21 years in prison, in Chinese prison, after the occupation of China, into Tibet. And he said that during those 21 years, he had never been more free. His mind had never been more sovereign. So these are the moments where you really have to kind of put yourself, contextualize in big patterns of time and space, and then choose how you're going to move the time and the space through you. And it's not a time of guilt or weakness, but it's a time of sobriety, and really using kind of what we call in the Shambhala teachings, the lion's roar, to look at the places where you're allowing things to occupy your mind, your body, your life, that do not belong there, and ways that you're pulling power trips on other people, and how you're participating in that, so that we can just work this shit out. But because this is not going to just happen without us participating. We have to participate in this, what is actually the Great Reset. reset, not some nefarious, new world agenda, what's actually the great reset is the ascension of consciousness on this planet. So it's not, the concept of something being reset is actually not untrue, which is also part of, kind of what gets mirrored in all of these different um, uh, parallel time streams or parallel time agendas, which is basically what we're experiencing right now. So that all being said, let's do the intelligence meditation. In America here, the way we deal with this kind of shady holiday that we have is we just stuff ourselves so that we don't have to feel anything, and then ignore our family and get triggered. That leave it to America to really just like as much food as possible, numb out, football, more food. So let's create a new tradition of holiday where we get more open, more sensitive, more empowered. That's what we're here for in the Rama holiday experience. And this is actually kicking off 30 days of holiday wellness and consciousness. And I'm using the word sobriety. I don't care what you're doing, so don't be triggered by that. I just mean, clear mindedness, clarity. So we're going to have 30 days of amazing experiences, and today is kicking that off.